more Far Cry
in the case
5
of a Big
really
Brother
have this game
Canada
fucking
triple
done,
eviction,
but
and
we're
that's
still playing.
because he is very often a third nominee. Somebody that just, I'm not going to put up 3 targets. I'm going to put up, at best, 2 targets and a David.
So we need
and
8,650?
then there are usually numbers to keep one of the other people, like a Nicole or Cody or even Memphis if Christmas and Cody sometimes are off the block. And David often just kind of gets hit by that stray shot. That he was not really a target, but they didn't know who else to put up in the third spot, and so he gets sent home there, and his chance of going home increased dramatically.
Yep, I think that David, in this situation, it's just, it makes sense to put David on the block. Like, you don't want to have 3 people upset with you. Like, because David, he already knows, like, everyone's not really working with him. He's an easy mark. Like, you just put him up there. He's not going to be angry with you necessarily because there are so many other people who have put him on the block or targeted him or whatever. And so it's an
essentially what I have is a collage in the background. So essentially it's the same foreground, which is like
also easy to just
red
go and not worry about saving.
Yeah.
So
he has no agency.
Transparent
no agency
foreground
him.
with
That's the problem. You really need
necessary
to have
information, the logo,
to survive this
and
sort
then
of a triple
in the background is a collage of all the things I
which is exactly how they shouldn't play. They,
so
if it is a BB,
the main
a BB
5, which are so essentially on mobile.
There's no way that David should touch the block. I mean,
you see 3 of these
but they're not going to have time to
you
think
see
that
Big Brother,
No,
Survivor,
well,
and Assassin's Creed in the middle.
I have 2 hours, so
on
we got some sort of time.
Desktop, you add in Amazing Race on the left, and you add in Ninja Warrior on the right, American Ninja Warrior on the right.
I just feel like it's like, I mean, I guess it makes sense because
I spent 3 or 4 hours working on
then you're not really thinking about that.
Which no one will ever fucking see, but I wanted to make it anyway.
And only one person.
And for that, I added in 20 more topics.
And if you're putting their allies up next to them.
It's also the fact that
I really like how it turned out.
Don't have 3 people that they want to go home right now. That they are only thinking 2 people ahead. That like Danny wants Tyler and Christmas to go. Christmas and Tyler to go. Who's the third person? David, I guess. I don't want David to be here. Nicole wants Tyler and Memphis to go. Who's the third person? Danny? David. I'm not going to put Danny on the block and then she doesn't go home. You know, who does Tyler want to go?
Fuck.
Danny and Nicole and Memphis, I guess. He's actually one of the few people I think might not put David on the block. It's a bad example. But you know, even Christmas, like Danny and Nicole. And then who else for Christmas? Cody? Okay, yeah. But then David goes up on the block. If the veto is won in any of these, even if he doesn't go up on the block in the first round, he definitely goes up on the block in the second round because there are definitely at least 2 people, at least 3 people that people want to protect, right? It just puts people in a bad spot. Now, if they had time to really prepare and they knew it was going to be a BB Can style eviction, then they could go, okay, if I have to nominate 3 people, let me count the votes in every scenario. Let me tell you, from experience, it takes a few hours. You have to have some time to sit down and think and prepare if you really want to avoid just sending out somebody like David. So,
which I will say, Melissa, I don't mean to interrupt you, Karen, I'm so sorry, but Melissa was talking about the fact that weird stuff can happen. That would be one of the few places where I think that it would be played to your advantage in terms of, forcing people to do something that they aren't prepared for and getting unpredictable results. Because in the first triple eviction we ever saw at Big Brother Canada, someone actually ended up sending home someone who was their ally because they were counting the votes and they weren't sure about who would vote to save where, and they ended up making a choice to basically save someone. Basically, they made a choice to save somebody that that if somebody else went home, they knew they had to have this person, and they had to have Kevin Martin out of the game. She actually ended up sending home one of her best friends, the girl I'm talking about, who was actually the winner of that season in that scenario, and it was very funny to watch and gave us a very unpredictable show that evening.
Yes, I'm seeing in the chat people are saying that Danny just said on the feeds that she is going after Tyler over Christmas now.
Sorry. at my hand.
I know you're upset about Tyler being targeted.
I was like, wait, what?
But come on.
Trent saying?
I don't know. Again, it's hard to know. Sometimes this is not actually true.
I haven't followed
Sometimes
the
people
feeds
make
at all
things up
today.
in the chat.
But I know that
Sometimes
they've been playing really hard
it's
recently
not like
because they
super
got
thing.
word.
But let me tell you this: if this is true, if Danny has decided that she would prefer Tyler to go
Is that the last
over
one?
Christmas,
Maybe it's the last
then
one,
I would
that's fine.
shift those odds. I can't tell you the exact percentage it would shift, but likely we would see Tyler and Christmas be a little more, at least a little bit even in terms of odds. I would probably look at them like Tyler's probably at like 25% and Christmas is at like 23% or something like that. And so Tyler would go up, and Memphis would probably stay the same. So it would be Danny, Memphis, Tyler, Christmas in that order, if that's what happens there. And if it's true, I'll adjust my formula for the next time we talk.
Yeah, I want to see this formula, Taryn.
You can look at it. I don't know if it'll make any sense to you.
Yeah, I just want to say, I want to tell everybody. So earlier today, I listen to the live updates when I can.
So what I ended up doing is I did go through this plan that I talked about last night, where I want the top half to be reality TV or TV based. I want the bottom half to be video game based. So, however, the middle strip, I decided to make it. So essentially, I made the top reality TV, bottom video game, and then the middle strip I made more. It's more of a Lucian Goofy sort of thing.
Oh my god.
So essentially, and also I tried to. I put a lot of thought. It's like way more thought than what it's worth, considering no one's gonna see this.
But yes, I would expect that Tyler's percentage would go up, Christmas's would go down, because a big part of why Christmas is likely to go home is those two instances where Danny wins the HOH, or Cody winning the second HOH is the other place where she probably goes home. So, but Danny targeting Tyler over Christmas would definitely shift the balance toward much more likely that Tyler goes home than Christmas. But
Casey Gillette, your beard is our trade. These are your tools.
Hunters don't sound too good. If Jacob wants you,
would it change the other one? Probably as well. We'd probably just shift so Danny, still most likely to go home in a Big Brother Canada style eviction. David, 50% chance that he goes home there as well. Then you have Memphis
I tried to correlate also the middle images, especially with the reality TV style. I tried to correlate the middle images with the images that were above them. So immediately above the Ninja Warrior picture is a Sasuke image. Right above the Survivor image is Australian Survivor and Survivor South Africa.
So what this kind of does is like squash the numbers a bit, so that it's just generally more likely that anything can happen, which I'm sure is why.
And then the other one above Sasuke was Survivor New Zealand. I did talk about this last night, how I was probably going to try to fit in Survivor UK. I did not do that, and the problem with that was finding a high-res image to use, and there just wasn't really one,
that's where we are. David, by the way, so David, 50% chance in Big Brother Canada style.
That, and also, I mean,
16% chance in a double-double.
Even with Survivor New Zealand, it was tough to find an image, and that just happened 2 years ago. So
David would probably be even less than the 16%. I think David would probably be pretty much a lock to stay for the next couple of evictions, if not for the triple in general. But that's about where I see this. It's again, it's obviously not 100% accurate. It goes off of certain assumptions that a lot of the major choices I do think are obvious and locked in. There are a couple of scenarios where it's like could go this way. I tried to incorporate that into this as much as I could, but that's what I got.
That was the measure. That's
good job, Karen. Yeah, really. I'm so excited to see some of this play out, because on Thursday night we're going to get what will be, honestly, since I'll tell you, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. Since Davon got evicted, I've been so bored. I really have been. I've been looking for something to pick me back up, and at least we're going to get a little bit of a pick-me-up on Thursday with what's going to happen. And, they were clued in a little bit, but again, I don't think they're prepared for what's exactly going to happen.
So we still have a
And,
roommate, though.
I just love it when the house guests are surprised. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, if people really want to see this whole thing, I probably need somebody to make a chart for me based on, because there's no way that I'd be able to present this in a readable format by myself.
Yeah.
It's so funny. This is why you do so much better in the stopwatch than I do, because in my mind I'm like, well, there's really no way to predict what's going to happen on Thursday. And you're like, well, actually, here's exactly how we're going to predict it down to the numbers. And that is exactly why I do not do well in the stopwatch.
Well, there you go. All right. Speaking of the stopwatch, are we ready?
We are.
Yes.
Okay, let's get into it then. Here is the stopwatch. We're going to rate the players from 1 to 10 based on how well they are doing in the game this week. And it's going to be an interesting one because with the triple looming,
those 4 were there. Above Big Brother, I put Big Brother Canada and Big Brother Australia.
Could easily go home. Like,
above
again, 1 in 6 shot.
Amazing Race,
at least for every single person.
The Circle and the Genius.
If not more. So,
and then, as I said, I tried to put 2 TV shows above Assassin's Creed. I was
where I want to rate these players in general.
But there, I did put Yu-Gi-Oh! And what was the other
because
one?
of anything they are doing, but I think in general I was just kind of like, the triple kind of makes everyone's game worse.
Again, I want to put things I've talked about multiple times. So
it doesn't
those
really
all
help
fit
anyone
perfectly.
except for like maybe
The video game section was a bit tougher, if I'm being honest, because there was one slot that I really just didn't know what to do with. So essentially, right below Assassin's Creed, I ended up putting MCU. I felt like that was pretty solid to put MCU. In the bottom right corner, I decided to put essentially like a PlayStation section. So I put Uncharted, The Last of Us, Horizon, and God of War.
Bit by bit.
And then on the bottom right, I had a few. Bottom right, I had a few locks. Kingdom Hearts, Life is Strange, and Walking Dead Telltale. And Witcher 3. I was gonna put those. But then there was one spot open, the bottom on the center, and I really just didn't know what to do with it. I was thinking I was going to do Star Wars maybe, but I've only done one video on Star Wars, and I really don't plan on doing another one anytime soon. So I was really trying to think of like, what can I do there? Could I do? I thought about Red Dead, and I really wanted to put Red Dead. The problem was I kind of realized that because the overlay is red, it kind of makes the Red Dead image like really stand out in a way that I really don't like. Because like every other image I use is using a lot of darker colors. There's a lot of darker colors, like dark blacks and blues and purples and that sort of stuff. There's some yellow here and there, but it's like for the most part it is darker colors. I feel like Red Dead just didn't fit.
Exactly how low? I think by the end of Thursday night, she will not be in the house anymore. So I'm going to give her a 4. I think that she's quickly running out of runway in the Big Brother house. And I look forward to her during the triple eviction when the HOH is invariably targeting her during the second part and says, Christmas is my target. And she says to everybody, well, we need to respect what the HOH wants here, guys. That's what we should do. Yeah, that was sarcasm, by the way.
What a weird mission.
It's a 4.
All right. It's been tough. It's been tough for Christmas. I'm gonna go with a 5 for Christmas, and that's because about a 33% chance, according to my own calculations, that she goes home on Thursday. Although if you assume that Big Brother Canada style and Big Brother Double style are equally likely, then you'd kind of average those percentages out and it'd be a little bit lower. But still, she's relatively likely to go home on Thursday. But if she doesn't go home, I don't know that she's necessarily like a target at the final 6. I think that she starts to blend back in, especially if she doesn't go, it's probably Memphis that goes, and that's not great for her. But at the same time, it's not terrible for her because, depending on who wins the next one, I think Cody will still probably be after her, but she will probably have like David and Tyler on board, and so depending on who else is there with her, right? But
this is a weird mission.
But I don't think she's in the worst spot in the world. I think the longer she makes it in the game, the more appeasing, the more appetizing she is as a final two, person to bring to the final two. I think Memphis is her best bet to win. I think she can beat Tyler. A lot of people have looked at Tyler like he's checked out this season. Davon doesn't respect the way that he tried to leave the game.
Davon is not feeling Tyler, let me tell you all.
Just to make this clear overall, especially at this part of the game, like, I feel like anybody can win this jury.
I do too.
I really do. Not only because every member of the jury has gone out being like, I'm going to be super bitter, and it's like, what does that even mean? Like, who does that impact the most? I have no idea. And then also the fact that a lot of these players are on relatively equal playing fields. They've all been in the same
Yeah, so the question was, what was that last image? And I decided to go with Final Fantasy because I do plan on playing the Final Fantasy, like doing multiple videos next year on Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy 12, and I really liked the first, that was one of the images that I found for Final Fantasy 15, so I was like, let's use this. So, and then after that, I also correlated these things on themes, which again, I won't put too much work on this. But I put Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy on the same row. I put Life is Strange and Walking Dead, Telltale, on the same row again, both like narrative, whatever, adventure games. In the center, I put The Witcher 3.
At the same time,
and something cool that I like kind of coincided with, and then I put Uncharted and Last of Us, obviously two Naughty Dog games, and then Horizon and God of War. But then also this bottom row ended up essentially being games that are based around relationships, with the middle three being father-daughter relationships, which was really fucking weird that ended up working that way. But you have The Witcher 3, obviously about Geralt and Ciri. You have The Last of Us about Joel and Ellie, and then you have the other game.
But I do think that she has like
the other
some
one?
people still.
Then we have Walking Dead, Telltale, Clementine and Lee. Then also in the corners we have God of War, which is Kratos and Atreus, and then we have Final Fantasy 15, which is about Noctis and his group, really. So I kind of like how that worked out.
It's so hard to judge where these players are with the triple. And I want to say,
though, I mean, obviously Final Fantasy is a bigger outlier there. To be honest, actually, it probably makes more sense if it was like Strange.
If she leaves this week, then this. If she doesn't leave this week, then this. It's like anybody could leave. Like, usually it's like, we only have two people to consider, well, if they leave or if they don't leave, and the rest of them are like, okay, they're going to be here next week so they can turn it around. But now it's like, she could literally be gone.
6 people.
Yeah. And what I said at the start of this was that, like, players are going to be penalized for the triple coming, but I think what I meant was that, like, for me, my ratings gravitated toward the middle, just because the more uncertainty there is in the game, the more I'm just like, it's not good, it's not bad, I don't know. Anything could happen. And like, just because, Christmas is, third most likely person to go home in the triple eviction doesn't mean that she's going to, you know what I mean? Like, it's still only 30%. Like, that's actually not that big. At the same time, 16% is probably bigger than people think, but 33% is probably not as big as people might think. So, the percentages can be misleading sometimes if you're trying to compare them, I think. So next up is Cody. Let's talk about Cody. Last week, Cody got the highest score in the history of the stopwatch. He got 3 10s and an 8 from the audience. This week, I am not at the 10, mostly because of the triple eviction. So he's very well positioned. He's probably going to survive the triple eviction. But I don't know what the game is going to look like on the other end of the triple eviction. It will probably look good for him. But I don't know. So that's one thing. Second thing, didn't love how he handled the Kevin conversation. I think that he has pretty much repaired it. I don't think Kevin's going to leave this game like, I'm definitely still not voting for Cody. I think he's fine with Cody now. But if this is an indication of like how Cody will react in a jury questioning, then like that's not great. Third thing, he has too much faith in the idea that David will not come for him. I think that David will come for him, and I'm not sure he sees that, and that's pretty much the one thing he doesn't see in the game. So those are 3 negatives, but they're not like huge negatives. They're just like, I'm really trying to nitpick, and but with those nitpicks, it's a 9 for me.
Yeah, totally agree. You called it. The Kevin conversation was really the first part of what I have seen before in Cody, but that Derek really kept under lock and key, which was the obstinate part of him, the part that gets irritated quickly, that snaps at people. And even then, I don't think it was terrible in the conversation with Kevin, but overall, I don't think he handled it as well as he could have, considering he's the one who's the HOH. He's the one who's in power. He's the one who's ending somebody else's dream. You have to at least own your stuff in that.
Yeah, I really had a lot of fun setting up that banner. I really like how it turned out. Again, like that Final Fantasy one, though, realistically, maybe I should have just said fuck it and went for Red Dead, and then next year when I update it, add in Final Fantasy, but fuck it. I just felt like it looked better overall, Final Fantasy on there.
I forgot to ask you, what's the scenario where you see that happen?
I mean, so let's see. Christmas wins, HOH, targets,
Danny, Nicole, Cody is what I...
Yeah, Danny, Nicole, Cody, and then Danny wins.
Take the towers out first.
Actually, wait, let me take that back.
That ought to clear the signal enough for me to locate the patrol.
David wins the
I'll let you know.
Yeah, right?
Okay. Yeah, nobody would use the veto on Danny. Danny would have to win the veto. Danny wins the veto, comes down, she has to name her replacement nominee, and she puts up Enzo?
Yeah. I mean, that is similar to the spot. I think she's less likely to put up Enzo in the third, because she can't promise Enzo's safety, and I don't think she wants to risk Enzo's safety in that spot. So I think she's less likely to put up Enzo there as she is in the second part of the double or triple. But it's still, I guess, theoretically possible. I think I expected that she would put David up as the replacement with a 3 nomination.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to avoid saying David, because I'm like, if he goes on the block in a triple, I think he's gone. In that kind of a triple. So anyway, no matter what, anyway you slice it, it's a 9. And if he can survive the triple eviction and things continue to go his way, I'll bump him back.
There is one problem.
But right now, there's too many unknowns and a couple of deficiencies.
Don't ask me why. Safeguards.
No, I agree. And I kind of like, I feel like I regret giving him a 10 last week only because I'm like, really? This is the highest scored person in our whole stopwatch?
Melissa, he's been the HOH for freaking 8 weeks.
That is true. That is true. But still, it's like when you say it like that, it's like, oh, really? Like, is this what we're all gonna live with?
I do think that something that you have that we have to look at, because it can sometimes get lost, is that this is week to week. It is not completely about the player. It's not like the player with the most 10s is the technically best player of all time, right? We have given Cody the highest individual week score of all time, but when we go to rate him as an overall player, that's where he may be lower than other players.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the key, because I feel like the person looking in on it is like, okay, so he's ranked the highest out of anyone in the stopwatch. You guys consider him the best player, and it's like, no, that's not necessarily it. If we're gonna do one of our whatever player rankings
possibly on the season, I think it's him or Tyler.
I
think the problem with Tyler is now that we can't
the number one
really
player of all
assess
time
his
just because he
game,
was number one in the stopwatch or number one
or
player
assess him
of the
as a
past
player
few
as
seasons or
accurately
whatever.
anymore
I just
because
think
of what
that
we've seen this season.
if you look around and you
Long
see
load.
all the people, I mean, obviously he's doing something right. We all know that, but I do also think that part of what's playing into it is everyone around him kind of just being like, I want to protect Cody. I want to, if people were playing...
That's because he's doing something right.
I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know. I just feel like if he was on a different season and he was playing this exact same way, I don't necessarily think we would be ranking him this high, because I think that people might see through it and be like, okay, this guy's winning a ton. He's been in power for so long. We have to get him out. So I don't know. I just think that he's not.
I think you're correct that with different people on the show that he would not have such an easy ride. If there were more Kevins and Davons and less, Nicoles and Dannys who were kissing his ass, then I think he would have a tougher time. But the fact of the matter is, he played 2 seasons. The first season, literally no one came for him. They loved him on that season, and he got 2 votes at the end against Derek, one of the greatest of all time. And then he's on this season, and literally no one has come for him.
That's true. I mean, I don't want to discredit Cody, but
Go ahead,
can we
Melissa.
also point to the fact that these people on this season know him? Some of them know him prior to the season. They have an existing relationship. Maybe if he was put on a season with just random people, he wouldn't have these same sort of relationships.
Melissa, are you trying to say that this was pre-game?
Well, I do think that there is some prior relationships that are coming into play. But I mean, I do think Cody is a likable guy. I think that I can see why people gravitate towards him or maybe don't want to get him out, and then he kind of makes his way into your strategic alliance, I can see why it happened. I think Cody is a likable person, but I do think that we can't necessarily look at his last season and look at this season and be like, well, look, he's done it twice. Because I do think this season's a little different just because he had those relationships prior to the season.
I think, especially when we get to, when we do our, wrap-up podcast and we're ranking the players overall, I think probably the biggest topic of conversation when it comes to Cody will be around the advantage he had with his pregame connections. This was a good draw for him. That Nicole was a good draw, Enzo was a great draw, and even players like Tyler who were willing to work with him, Tyler was actually probably not a great draw for Cody, but the Tyler that we're seeing right now was. Tyler from Big Brother 20 wasn't a great draw, but this Tyler, pretty good. And so...
yeah. Plus, can you imagine if Cody or Memphis wins the season and then we have to deal with, for the rest of time, that, Hitman was the greatest alliance, we produced 2 winners out of 2 people, and same with, Renegades was the best, and, they did it with Chilltown, and now they're gonna do it again with this, and we'll never hear the end of it.
Or coast to coast.
White, black, Latino, Asian American, Native Americans, everybody. No matter your color, no matter your zip code, no matter your politics.
Yeah, who's going to
I'm
say
in this
that with?
campaign for you. It's about you,
Nicole,
the American
no.
people.
Danny, I guess if Danny wins, then Evil Dick can
Get a
say.
Memphis or a Cody win.
Best Alliance is a silly concept anyway, to be
Especially if they
real.
don't play on the same season, I feel like. I mean, I guess Chilltown, it makes sense because they played on both seasons, kind of. But this one, you don't even have the other person on the alliance on this season. So I don't know.
But yes, I'm sure. Not to get too bogged down in the Cody talk, but I'm sure there's plenty of conversation to be had about that when we get to the end game. But for right now, we're not ranking Cody on his overall performance as a player in general, because we'd probably be doing the same ratings every week if it's not often that we change dramatically our perception of who a player is and how good they are in general, right? So that's why we do week to week. We are trying to both judge them as players in terms of how much faith we have in them in this season, and also trying to predict how they are going to perform in the season. Are they going to win? Are they going to lose? That's why somebody going out, leaving the game, is often going to get a very low rating, when otherwise they, somebody who is on their way out the door will probably get a 2, maybe even a 1, but then the end of the season we'll rate them as a player, might be a 5, could even be a 6, could even be higher. But it's just they were definitely a goner in that week, and that's why we rated them lower. So something to keep in mind. But the audience gave Cody an 8. Again.
I thought you were gonna say give him a 10. I was gonna be man, wow.
The audience has never handed out a 10, correct?
No. They have given 9s, I believe, to Tyler.
Tyler, I see it on the thing I just retweeted. Yeah.
Yes.
I retweeted the times that 10's
Oh,
been
dang.
awarded, and Cody was, yeah, as you said, the highest rated person ever.
This might be the closest. This might be. I'm not sure. Well, with Christina, I'm sure we'll figure this out. But Cody, an 8.28, which is really close to a 9 in terms of how close people often get to 9s. So, yeah, it's getting there. All right.
Is this the
Next up
helicopter?
is Danny, and I can tell you that the audience gave Danny a 4 this week, same as last week. I don't know that I agree with the audience here. In fact, I almost went down to a 2. I mean, looking at my percentages for Danny, I was like 83% if I'm right. Like,
No,
that's 2 territory. But she's not on the block right now. And I wasn't ready to go all the way down to a 2, so I stuck with my 3.
Well, I will tell you, I did go down to a 2. And
I did
couldn't
too.
believe it myself. I went down to a 2 for Danny because of the fact that you cannot tell me that she's not going to end up on the block sometime on Thursday night. She's going to end up on the block, and I think it is a tall task to win 2 separate competitions over a 2-hour period. Whether it's HOH veto, veto HOH, HOH veto veto, whatever, anything like that. That's like fan fiction.
I feel like the only way she doesn't go home is if she wins 2 competitions. And I feel like
2
that's
specific
really
ones. It can't even be
only
HOH.
way.
So that's
and
why we're
veto.
giving her a 2.
Yeah, like, she could win 2 competitions and still go home on Thursday if they're not 2 of the right competitions. So that's really bad place to be.
And, not good.
Yeah. I mean, it's been done before. I mean, Ian was saved for like 6 rounds in a row. So
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, but I just feel like she's put herself in such a bad position that, like,
She deserves to pay for this.
right? It's like this is just super. It's not good any way you slice it. And I feel like even after this week, it's not good.
Yeah,
So-
the karma of the Big Brother universe is going to feed us. They are not going to give Danny the luck to be able to get out of the mess that she has painted for herself here.
It's too bad because I really enjoy her in the diary room, and I really am liking her as, like, a villain, like, mastermind, if she actually was the mastermind, you know what I mean? Like, it's
There
like
we
the
go,
way she
finally.
painted herself in the diary room, like, I'm loving it. It's unfortunate that it's not really accurate, but, like,
Yeah.
I
Melissa,
like the character.
She's not the mastermind, she's the Igor, okay? She's like the stupid assistant.
That's unfortunate. But, you know.
I think the other thing hurting her is that she is now an outsider. She's an underdog.
Okay.
And this season punishes underdogs. So like, she's
Right? Yeah, we never get what we want. Like, we're finally rooting for Danny. It's time for her to go. Off with her head.
all right. Next up is David. Melissa, how do you feel about David?
It's really tough because if this wasn't a triple eviction, I feel like I would feel a lot better about him just because I feel like, okay, the odds of him going up in a normal week,
He has a mission down there too.
like, aren't as great as they have been. Like, I feel like he's
Well,
kind of
next
faded to
episode,
the
I'm
background,
going
but
to on.
because it's a double eviction or a triple eviction, I feel like,
for now.
especially, like we said, if it's a
Thank
Big Brother
you
Canada
for
style
watching.
double eviction, triple eviction,